Why are we talking about Karl Marx? I'm going to argue that Karl Marx and his ideas had more impact on the 20th century than any other person. Maybe you could argue Jesus of Nazareth or Prophet Muhammad, but I think you're going to be able to make a real case that the ideas of Karl Marx had more of an impact on the 20th century than anybody else. And just to give you a little bit of a flavor, at one point, more than 25% of the world's population lived under a government that called itself Marxist. Those of us who are not fans of Karl Marx's theories always like to point out that he never studied economics. His thesis was on Democrates and Epicurus. Epicureanism is the belief that pleasure is what life's all about. In 1843, he wrote for the communist journal French Annals. And this is a very important point because he joined communist institutions and organizations. He didn't found communism. He didn't start communism. Communism and socialism existed before him, but not much before him. There was really, nobody used the phrase communist or socialist in the year 1790. It was a 19th century phenomenon. You'll notice that, 18 years pass before the first volume of Das Kapital comes out. He does writing in between, but this guy, remember Hamilton put out 54 letters from the Federalist Papers in 6 months. Marx did not write like he was running out of time. Marx was a slow, methodical researcher. So no idea comes out of nowhere. Marx was really heavily influenced by two German philosophers. The first was Hegel. Hegel taught at the University of Berlin very shortly before Marx got there, maybe 15 years before. So Hegel was almost a contemporary of Marx, 15 years ahead of time. Hegel, first main idea is the dialectic. The dialectic is a way of thinking, a way of reasoning. You start with a thesis. There's an opposing antithesis or antithesis. The two come back and you produce a synthesis, a third idea that comes out of the first two. That's the dialectic. And it's also a way of thinking about history, of two forces that combat each other and produce a third way. So that is going to become very important in Marxist thinking. Alienation is a key idea in Marxism. It's the idea that society forces human beings to become almost inhuman. That in the workplace, specialized labor makes you do a task more and more machine-like. You become a person who just moves your arm back this way or rolls a rock this way, and you're now a cog in a machine. You're no longer human. You no longer can relate to other humans, and you have lost your own sense of your own humanity. That's the concept of alienation, which is very important to Marx. The words communism, socialism, and Marxism have probably changed. And today, people use those words differently. Marx would have said that those words were synonymous. He would have said that he was a socialist, a communist, and a Marxist. The question is, was Marx a good critic of capitalism? Most Marxists today would say he didn't spend much time worrying about communism. He didn't write much about it. He spent a lot of time analyzing and criticizing capitalism. And so, as a believer in dialectic, this idea of forces coming in contact with each other, he was looking for contradictions in capitalism. That's what he thought produced change. And the big three contradictions in capitalism probably are going to sound pretty familiar to all of us in this room. First is that capitalists are always competing with each other to improve profits, so they're always going to try to cut the salaries of their workers. The workers are going to have less money to buy the capitalist products. That's a contradiction and a problem. The next one is that capitalists are going to try and cut costs by sending the work overseas to try to get cheaper work and to open up new markets. And that local workers will lose their jobs and they won't have the money to buy capitalist products. Marx did write this in 1852. And then capitalists want to cut costs by introducing technology. Technology reduced the number of workers who cannot buy the products. Contradiction. Marx did write this in the 1850s. So we're going to talk at dinner. These are usually considered Marx's three fundamental contradictions in capitalism that will ultimately cause capitalism's demise. If you ask a modern Marxist, what were Marx's two most important ideas? They are first, this idea of the dialectic material theory of history, that history is about things, working, food, economics, not ideas. That's number one. And the second one is this idea of surplus value. The concept is that when an employer decides to hire someone, he only does that, he or she only does that if they think that worker is going to produce goods that can be sold for more than the wages paid to the worker. This was Professor Wolf's question. You saw him in the YouTube video. And he's a self-described Marxist, and he asks this question. He says, every other system has been born, developed, and ended. Why should capitalism be any different? Are we really so cocky as to think we've stumbled on the perfect, eternal system? Interesting question.